It never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love. And it's higher than the mountains that I face, and it's stronger than the power of the grave, and it's constant in the trial and the change. This one thing remains. This one thing remains. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love. And on and on and on and on it goes. Yes, it overwhelms and satisfies my soul. And I'll never ever have to be afraid. This one thing remains. This one thing remains. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love. In death, in life, I'm confident and covered by the power of your great love. My debt is paid. There's nothing that can separate my heart from your great love. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love never fails, it never gives up, it never runs out on me. Your love.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen Mayer and I'm here with this week's Midweek Moment. I've asked the small groups for the last 2 weeks to look at their own discipleship, kind of as a yearly check-in. And it was a great time of year to do it because our readings right after Christmas but before Lent are about Jesus calling the disciples and starting his own mission. So for a lot of people who were raised in the faith, disciple is a kind of interesting word that you've heard a lot lately, and we don't always define it, or we don't always clarify how it might be different from an active Catholic. But if our mission as a parish is to form disciples who joyfully live out the mission of Jesus Christ in Bowie, then I think it's worth taking a moment and stopping and saying, well, what is a disciple? And so I offered the simple definition that a disciple was someone who'd had a transformative encounter with Jesus and surrendered their life to him. And that's scary language for some people who are Catholic, because for many of us, we've been Catholic our whole lives. We don't have a particular sense of a single moment of transformation. Or maybe I could say that better by saying, if you imagine someone who was raised without any sense of church or God, who came to a moment of conversion in their adulthood, they would have a pretty good sense of life before God and life after they met God. But for those of us who've been around church our whole lives, it's sometimes hard to point out that moment. So there's two suggestions I would make. One is look at the second part of the definition. Have you surrendered your life to, to Jesus? Um, in that sense of, is God part of your planning? Is God part of your experience? Is God a regular, everyday part of your life? Or is God something that you just turn on Sunday, access, turn back off, and go back to regular life? Um, but even more so, I want to take a look at that I want to go back to encounter. And I want to describe them as, for Catholics, particularly Catholics that have been around, that have been Catholic for their whole lives, rather than as a single encounter, it may be for many of us a series of encounters. And so I thought I might try to describe some of the ones that I've encountered and some of those experiences in my own life to see whether it might set off a couple light bulbs about what those experiences were like in your life. Um, so as a kid, I prayed to God, and I believe that He had my best interest in heart, kind of like Santa, and who would answer requests, again, like Santa, but of a much different nature. So um, keep me safe, keep my family safe, make my tummy ache go away, help me to do well on the test. You know, those are not things you ask Santa for. Um, but as I grew, I started to have a notion that God was particularly interested in me and particularly looking out for me as an individual rather than as a member of a big group. And so one of the places that I first had that experience was going on a retreat in college, where moment after moment just kept happening that seemed to open a door rather than closing it. So they played a fairly obscure song from my favorite songwriter at the time, as part of like the first half an hour of the retreat. And although we all theoretically had roommates, my roommate was not able to join us, which gave me a single, which I was not good at sharing space with people I didn't know. And so that gave me a huge sense of relief. And there were a couple other moments throughout that weekend where God just seemed to be looking out for me in a way that just made me open to the whole experience of the retreat and all the grace that God was trying to pour into me. And so I left from there on fire. If there was a single moment in my life where that relationship became personal, that would probably be the one I'd point to, but certainly not the only one. I remember in my early 20s um, going through what felt like a terribly rough breakup at the time. Broke up, I was dating someone, broke up, got back together, broke up, got back together. It just kept happening. Um, we couldn't quite figure that out. Um, and I remember at one point getting away for the weekend and driving up and being so frustrated by it that um, I almost kind of, I was driving through this small town in Pennsylvania and was going way faster than I should have been and almost hit somebody. And had this moment of, I really need to be at a church. I really need communion. Like, that is the only thing that's going to settle my soul. And so, in that moment of kind of calling out to God for His assistance, I got to the campsite. We made dinner. Eventually crawled into the tents to go to sleep. I was not a very good sleeper, so I was laying awake, but I had this sense of just utter peace settle over me. And it was as if God had answered that request for my presence that I had thought of fairly narrowly as I'd like to receive Eucharist because I know that there's peace that comes with that. And going, well, I can get to you other ways. And here's the peace you really wanted. Um, so those are a couple of examples of moments that I would call kind of anchor moments in the spiritual life. So if you think of it this way, people that go rock climbing, up open rock faces, as they climb, they take their little hammer and they hammer in these anchors and they put their safety ropes through it. And then they climb some more and they put in another anchor and they put their, so that if they fall, they don't really fall below the last anchor. And I think that for many of us, rather than a single transformative encounter, that we have those anchor moments in our life. And so the question I would pose for you is, have you had those anchor moments that help you understand that God loves you personally? Um, and as a second question, have you surrendered your life to Jesus? And if not, is that something that you want to do?